On our last video, we planted our first plot of cool weather crops for this fall. We planted some collards, we planted some lacinato kale, we planted some cauliflower, and we also planted some green magic broccoli. I want to show you how that's coming along and what we're having to do just to keep it hanging on until the temperature breaks. Let's see here, looks like it is a cozy 95, 96 degrees out today. Nice little burner for some fall planting. So here's that plot we planted in the previous video. Collards, kale, broccoli, and cauliflower. And these things are hanging on, just kind of barely hanging on. It's toasty out here today. Even though I've got this drip tape buried underneath these plants, still been having to run the overhead sprinkler, unfortunately, just to keep these things cooled off. My strategy has been to run the drip tape for an hour or so in the morning, and then in the afternoons when it gets blazing hot, I have to put this overhead on them. The plants start wilting a little bit, the heat's just too much for them, so we've just been having to cool them off to keep them limping along until we cool off a little bit. You can see right there with this kale plant, it's making it, just barely. It's not standing straight up like it should be, but it'll get there once it cools off a little bit. If all the weathermen are right, we've only got a few more days of this. 1 or 2 more days of 95, and then we're supposed to be clear of any 90-degree weather for hopefully until next, late spring, early summer or so. So once these temperatures get below 90s, this stuff will do a lot better. It's just right now we have to kind of baby it along. If you're new to our channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell button below so you get a notification every time we come out with a new video. If you're a frequent viewer of our channel, welcome as always. So we got that plot planted, all 11 rows, and now it's time to work on this baby right here. These plots are all the same size, 30 by 35. And this plot here is where we had some sorghum sudan grass. This stuff was up 5 or 6 foot tall before we mowed it down. We put a tarp on it to kind of help kill that mowed sorghum sudan grass, knock it back so we could get in here and cultivate and plant everything. We still got a good bit of residue down here that's chopped up. You can see some of that sorghum sudan grass clippings down there. Now after we removed that tarp, what we did, we came in here with some of our chicken manure compost, chicken manure with the peanut holes in it and those feathers that I showed you in a previous video. And we put 6 wheelbarrow loads on this plot. I've had a lot of people asking, how much do you put per 1,000 square feet? So I put 6 wheelbarrow loads. My wheelbarrow is 7 cubic feet. That's how much it holds. So about 42 cubic feet on this 1,000-foot plot right here. We spread those wheelbarrow loads out, got it nice and raked out, nice and even, and then came in here with a tiller and chopped it all up so we could chop up some of that leftover sorghum sudan grass debris, any chunks that we had from that chicken manure compost, and just get the soil nice and workable and ready for planting. We're using the same row spacing here that we did the previous plot, so we've got 11 rows here on a 3-foot spacing. I already came in here with my double wheel hoe and the plow set in the furrowing position, laid off those rows, made a furrow there so I can bury my drip tape. And before we plant this next round of fall crops, I wanted to kind of go through a little bit more in detail on this drip system and how it works and how we hook it up. A lot of times people are scared to start using drip irrigation in their garden because they just feel intimidated by it. They think it looks complicated, hard to set up, and they're just not real familiar with it. So today I want to show you just how easy it is to connect everything, get everything set up, so then when you do get ready to water your garden, and once the temperatures cool down, all you got to do is just go hook a water hose up and it's going to water everything nice and evenly. So the first component of our drip system that we put down or lay out is this mainline tubing here. And this is a solid poly tubing here, and it's got this blue line on it, and that blue line is going to be important because that's where we're going to want to punch our holes for our drip tape row starts to go in, and that's going to ensure we get them all kind of pointing in the same direction. So we'll straighten that out in a little bit and get it all facing toward where the row is going to go. I like to take a couple bricks or something heavy and put on each side or each end of the mainline tubing just to kind of hold it down until I get everything installed. And then on the very ends of the mainline tubing, you've got these little clamps called a figure 8 end clamp that crimps that so no water is coming out of the end. And then to feed our mainline tubing, we've got this piece here we call a filter regulator combo. So you've got your filter right here, your pressure regulator, which you need to knock it down so it doesn't blow out the lines. Your water hose hooks up right here. And then you've got this T here, which I like to use so I can put this in the middle of my mainline section. Now you could certainly put it on the end and run it in one direction, but I've found that if we put it in the middle, we get a more equal distribution of water. So what we'll do is we'll cut this mainline in half right here, hook up one end to this side of the T, one end to the other side of the T, and that way we get a nice equal distribution of water over this entire plot. So we cut our main line in half between these two rows, and we're going to put one end onto here, twist it on there, and we want to make sure that blue line is facing out that way, and then we'll just tighten this nut down. And then on the other side we'll do the same thing. Put it in there, make sure the blue line's facing the right way, and tighten that nut down. So now when we hook our water hose up right here, water's going to go through that filter, through that pressure regulator, and then split off right there and feed that main line to the right and to the left, so it can feed all the drip rows in this garden here. The next step is to put down the drip tape or bury the drip tape. Now you'll see a lot of other farmers and channels out there that lay their drip tape on top of the soil, and I just can't understand why you would want to do that. We bury ours for several different reasons. The first one, which is especially important as hot as it is that your surface evaporation is greatly reduced when you bury it. So your plants actually get to use more of that water that you're putting out than if you laid it on the surface, where you're going to get more evaporation. So we bury it so we get more bang for our buck out of the water that we're putting out. Another reason to bury it is it's out of the way. We can actually take a little shallow weeding tool and cultivate on top of it when it's buried. We don't have to move the drip out of the way to weed between our rows or around our rows. It's just nice and out of the way. Some people recommend putting staples on top of it, but forget the staples, just bury it and you don't have to worry about that. Wherever you put it, that's where it's going to be. So as is the case with almost anything in this world, there's an easy way to do something and there's a hard way to do something. I'll show you the easy way to lay drip tape, and then we'll also talk about how you can do it if you don't have access to this nice tooling that makes it easy for you. So this here is our drip tape layer attachment, and this is a setup that attaches to our double wheel hoe, only the double, not the single or the high arch. And it holds a 1,640 foot roll of drip tape and basically lays it down in the furrow and buries it simultaneously. Now for this thing to work properly, you have to make a furrow. It won't work well if you just try to do it on top of the soil. So you've got to make a furrow first, and then this thing is going to lay the tape several inches deep in that furrow and bury it. So you've got that roller down there, and that's going to basically apply the tape in the furrow nice and tight, and then the plow set comes right behind it and covers it up. Really, really simple, yet really, really effective device for a small scale garden. Allows you to lay this tape really fast and really easy. Now if you don't have a wheel hoe or don't have our drip tape layer attachment, can you still bury your drip tape and still plant on top of it like we do? Yes, you can. Let me tell you how you would do that. So without this nifty tool here, it basically becomes a two-man job. You need one person on the end of the row holding the roll, or maybe you can design some kind of device to hold the roll, sort of like a water hose stand. But you need something to hold the roll there, and then somebody else to pull out the tape along that row there. And once you lay it in the row, then you've got to keep it nice and tight, and then come back behind it with the plow set in the hilling position and cover it up. You could also cover it up with a rake. So you don't necessarily need a wheel hoe. You could make these furrows with a hoe and cover it up with a rake. It would just take you a lot longer. So you can do it without this attachment here. Many people do. It just makes it a two-man job, whereas using this, it's a one-man job. Now, whether you're laying drip tape with this drip tape layer attachment, or doing it by hand, or burying it, or putting on top of the soil, you always want to make sure those emitters are facing upwards towards the sun. And so to get started with this process, we're just going to take our nail that we include with the drip tape layer. We're going to poke it down through that tape into the soil to hold it in place there. And we're just going to walk along that row and put down some tape. So I'm going to go ahead and get these 11 rows knocked out real quick and then we'll talk about hooking up the row starts and the row ends on the drip tape. Roll that beautiful bean footage. All right. That was quick and easy. Only took us about 10 minutes to lay those 11 rows of drip tape there. Just to note, we do include 2 of these staking nails with our drip tape layer, so you don't have to walk back and forth across the garden every time. You've got 2 nails, so you can just grab the one from the previous side of the garden when you go to start a new row. You can see our drip tape lines there. They're buried, and then they stick out at the beginning of the row where we'll hook them up to that mainline tubing there. Another neat thing about that drip tape layer is it makes 2 little perfect mini furrows on each side of that buried drip line, which is awesome for planting carrots or planting anything on double rows. We'll talk more about that in some upcoming videos. Now, if you didn't want to plant a whole plot at one time like I've been doing, and you just wanted to plant a few rows one week and plant a few more rows the next week, you don't have to lay all this tape at one time. That main line is sealed, so you can lay tape for a couple rows, plant them, be watering them, and then when you get ready to install a few more rows, you can do that one step at a time if you'd like. That way you don't have to do it all in one day. So now let's talk about how we hook up these row starts and these row ends to make the system complete. So this piece here is what we call a row start. So this connects the drip tape to this main line. So the drip tape slides on that barb right there. This nut is used to tighten it down onto that tape. And then this little barb right here sticks into this main line where that blue line is. So you can use a knife, but I like scissors because it just gives a little cleaner cut. Come in here an inch or so before the main line, and I'm gonna cut that right there. I'm gonna make sure this green nut is backed all the way back. I'm gonna slide the tape onto this barb here. I'm gonna give it a little twist. Make sure it's on there nice. And then I'm gonna tighten this nut down here onto the tape so we get a nice secure connection. And then to hook this piece up to the main line, we use this little tool here called a hole punch. And so we're going to poke it right into that blue line right there. Got our hole poked there. And then we just take this barb, stick it in that hole, and it'll pop in. And we're good to go. That's one row start installed there. Now we do make these with a valve on them as well. So if you want to turn certain rows in your garden on or off, you can get the ones with the valve and do that. I usually just use these because I'm watering all the rows at one time. Now once you get all your row starts installed, you can turn the water on and kind of flush out the system, let some water run out of here if you're worried about any dirt being in the lines there. So you can flush that out. But to close these off, You'll see a lot of people doing it several different ways. People will tie these into knots, fold them over, use another piece to kind of crimp it. But the easiest way we found are these things here called row ends. You'll see that it's got a narrow lip on one end, kind of a wider one on the other end. So what you do is you take your drip tape, you slide it through that narrow end, and then you're just going to fold this drip tape about 2 times and then slide it back through that big end, and you got a nice secure clamped drip tape row end there. So we got all our row starts hooked up, all 11 of them, and our row ends put on, and our drip system is now complete. All we have to do is come in here and hook up a water hose to this brass piece right here, and it'll feed all those lines. We can get those water spots showing up, and we'll be ready to plant. So I hope explaining kind of the nuts and bolts of drip irrigation helps some of you guys out there that are on the fence about using it, or maybe you think it's a little complicated. It's really simple. It's just a small investment of time up front when you're putting your garden together that's going to save you tons of time throughout the lifespan of those plants, because it makes it so easier to water everything evenly. You're going to use less water, you're going to water more effectively. One of the other frequent questions we get about drip irrigation is, can I reuse it? And we'll be reusing this stuff all throughout the fall and winter. So when one of the crops, one of these rows is done, we'll go in, we'll pull that crop out or cut it down, we'll rip up that tape, cultivate that area, clean it up. If there are any weeds there, we'll put the tape right back down. We don't even have to disconnect it from the main line. We'll put the tape right back down and plant something else on top of it. So I'll reuse this tape here 4 or 5 times before I probably cover crop or give this plot a rest. In this plot here, we're going to be planting some cabbage. I've got some Cheers cabbage transplants, some red cabbage. We're going to be planting some more kale. I've got some blue night kale and some scarlet kale. We're also going to be planting some rutabagas and some purple cauliflower. But we can't get it all in one day. Fall planting is like our elephant. And as Daddy always says, you have to eat an elephant one bite at a time. So we do it one bite at a time. We set up our drip system one day, we'll plant it the next day. So you have to stay tuned to the next video where we'll be planting all those awesome transplants in this garden here. If you have any more questions about drip irrigation that I didn't answer, please put those in the comments below. And if you just started using drip irrigation, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Has it been a game changer for you like it is for almost all the customers we hear from? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.